Chapter 81. See you after a long time. You must complete a task independently to be a full member? Klein paused. However, we don't necessarily have a mission once a week, and it's not necessarily simple. Doesn't this mean that it will take me about a month or two to officially become a night watchman and get a promotion and a raise? Old Neil sniffed the coffee and glanced at him. This is just a ceremony between night watchmen. After all, we stand in the forefront of fighting extraordinary dangers, and we certainly don't want our teammates to be children who need to be taken care of at all times, which does not affect your salary as a full member, your corresponding rights, and your necessary obligations. It turned out to be a ceremony to gain the approval of other night watchmen. But, Mr. Neil, why did you emphasize that it would not affect my salary at the full member level? Did I show it so obviously? Klein touched his face, embarrassed smile, turned to ask away. Must it be a task of extraordinary nature? It should have been like this, but you did really well yesterday, cleverly killing an extraordinary person with at least sequence 8. I think Fry and Luo Yao should have recognized you, so Dun may just assign an ordinary task. Old Neil suddenly sighed. My salary has doubled. I will never encounter anything similar in my life. Klein smiled twice, take the initiative to mention their own sequence way. Mr. Neil, do you think the sequence 8 corresponding to Soothsayer is clown true? In fact, recalling the description of confidential information is quite consistent. A professional who is good at skilled fighting, I can't promise you, but I think this may be very big. First of all, it is consistent with the records and the data, and it is characterized by agile movements and skillful fighting. Secondly, there are similar situations in other sequence ways. Do you know the name of the sequence 8 corresponding to Peeping the Secret Man? Old Neil walked over and asked, I don't know, it's not in the church's materials. Klein shook his head calmly. Old Neil hey a track. I am familiar with the two old guys of Mechanical Heart. They mentioned in a joking tone that the name of the potions in the 8 sequence corresponding to Peeping Secret Man is Fighting Scholar. Did you hear that? Fighting Scholar? Goddess, I don't like fighting at all, which is totally inconsistent with the image of Peeping Secret Man. Understandably, Peeping the Secret Man is looking for something the secret behind, and fighting is also a kind of thing. Klein wanted to think, well, don't waste time. Go on with the occult course. You still have a lot of ritual magic to master, and you must really learn how to make spells and amulets. Old Neil has finished grinding coffee by hand. Okay. Klein sat down and arranged today's time in his heart. In the morning, I studied mysticism, looked through all kinds of historical materials, and submitted an application for reimbursement. After lunch, I went to the shooting club to practice, and then I went to the DeVille Library in Jinwatong District to see if I could borrow academic monographs and corresponding periodicals related to the main peak of Hornachi's. After all this, if I still have time, I would go to the Divination Club to sit down. I can't relax my playing. When the application is approved and the fee is paid, I will add a formal suit on my way home. Well, apply for materials tomorrow morning and try to make amulets for Melissa and Benson to avoid adversity. In an elegantly decorated restaurant with chandeliers, several friends are congratulating Joyce Mayer on his escape from adversity and return to Tingen. We have all seen the newspaper, and it is just a description of the text that makes people feel scared. A man with a short beard under his chin sighed with emotion. Joyce, it's hard to believe that you have experienced such a thing and suffered such hardships. Cheers. The bad luck is gone. The sun shines on us and the steam is on the floor. Joyce and his fiancée Anna raised their glasses at the same time, touched their friends, and then drank the little champagne left inside. These days, Anna is really worried. I suspect that she is crying every night. When I invite her to have afternoon tea, she is always absent-minded. Fortunately, you've finally come back. Otherwise, I suspect that she will die like this. A young lady with brown hair looked at Anna and told Joyce that she had a small and lovely nose. If something similar happens to Anna, I will do the same, even more rude. Joyce with aquiline nose looked gently at his fiancé next to him. Anna is not used to showing her feelings in front of others. She took a look at the other end of the long table and said, Bogda, why do you keep your head down? I can feel that you are in a bad mood. The young lady with a small nose replied instead of the other party. Bogda is ill, and the physician told him that there is a big problem with his liver. Using drugs can only reduce the pain, and can't really treat it. A surgery must be performed. Lord, when did this happen? Anna and Joyce asked in surprise and concern. Bogda is a young man with very short hair. His face is yellow and his usual shrewd red eyes are dim. Last week, because Joyce hasn't come back yet, I asked Elaine and them not to tell you. Bogda explained with a wry smile. Joyce asked calmly, have you considered when to have the operation? Bogda's expression changed a few times. No, I haven't made a decision yet. You know, those surgeons are butchers. The people who operate are the meat on the chopping block, and they kill them at will. I've read a lot of reports, and they even take an axe to help people amputate. Lord, I doubt that I will die on the operating table. However, if you delay any longer, maybe surgery won't save you. The man with a short beard under his chin advised. At this moment, Anna suddenly interposed. Bogda, maybe you can consider doing a divination. If the divination shows that everything goes well, then operate as soon as possible. If the result of divination is not good, just look for other ways and follow the soothsayer's tips to find it. I know a real and magical soothsayer. No, I should call him a soothsayer. I think he can definitely help you. Really? Bogda asked with obvious suspicion, and several of their other friends had the same attitude. Really? Anna nodded without hesitation. I asked him for divination about Joyce, and then he told me to go home. Your fiancé was waiting for you at home. At that time, I was as suspicious as you, but when I got home, I really saw Joyce and he really came back. I can testify to this. Joyce echoed. He didn't say that he came to ask for a dream interpretation because the police told him that Torres had not been caught, so he had to hide the secret to avoid retaliation. Lord, this is unbelievable. Is divination really that magical? Yet amazing, Bogda thought for a moment. Maybe I really should have a divination. Anna Joyce. Can you tell me the address and name of the diviner? Anna relieved way. You made a wise choice. The diviner is in the divination club in Halsblock. His name is Klein Maridi. In the Jinwatong district, in the DeVille library. Klein successfully got a library card with the letter of introduction from his tutor in the letter. He looked through the small card in his hand and asked several administrators. Do you have a study on the ancient ruins of the main peak of Hornachis? Published by Wen Publishing House. One of the administrators immediately replied, Please wait a moment while I look for it. He turned around, facing the drawers, opened the one corresponding to the initials Hornachis, and then dug out several cards filled with words according to certain rules, carefully watched it again. He shook his head away. Sorry, sir. We don't have this book. What a pity. Klein replied, slightly disappointed. It seems that I can only write to Wen Publishing House or go back to Hoi University. At the same time, he secretly lamented that the libraries in this world are still managed in the old way. Do you need a computer? But I can't get it out. Klein laughed at himself and asked instead, Are there any periodicals such as New Archaeology and Archaeological Summary? Yes. The administrator replied affirmatively. A gentleman just returned it. He rummaged through the corresponding cards again and pointed out the location of the bookshelf to Klein. Klein came there, scanned the issue numbers, and pulled out several books mentioned by his tutor. Then, he casually found a window seat and sat down. In the bright afternoon sunshine, he leafed through the information in the quiet library. The ancient ruins not only exist in the main peak of Hornachis mountain range, but also widely exist in woodlands, valleys, and gentle slopes around the main peak. These ruins are composed of towering domes and huge stone pillars, which can be intuitively described by grandeur. It is puzzling that how did the Aborigines here mine and polish these stones? First of all, we assume that they are on-site mining and do not need to be transported up the mountain. A strange rule is that the closer you get to the top of the mountain, the more grand the ruins are. Surprisingly, there are no ruins on the top of the mountain. According to our speculation, there should have been a palace that is not like human architecture and used to worship the temple. Unlike the palace built by human beings, the temple used for sacrifice. Is it the one I saw in my dream? Klein's thoughts were full, and suddenly he heard several footsteps from far and near. He looked up and saw a familiar face, a face that often appeared in newspapers. Square face, thick eyebrows, firm nose, short hair with dark gold, blue eyes and tight lips all belonged to a famous person, philanthropist, entrepreneur, and owner of this library in Tingen, Sir DeVille. Next to DeVille, there was a middle-aged housekeeper whom Klein had seen. Klein looked at them passing by after a distance of 10 meters, raised his right hand curiously in his heart, and tapped the eyebrows twice. Chapter 82 Herbal Medicine Shop. Various colors emerged, and the aura came into my eyes. Klein took a casual look at Sir DeVille's state. The body is very healthy, there are almost no hidden problems, the mood is very poor, and there is weakness in the gloom. Mental weakness? Poor sleep? The problem is, there is nothing wrong with the purple color on his head. Klein muttered silently, and Sir DeVille and his party walked away and left the library. Looking back, Klein pinched his forehead and inwardly sighed. It's not easy to be rich. He didn't pay much attention to this matter and turned his attention to the journals and magazines in front of him again. After reading one article after another, Klein didn't find two useful clues, just confirmed a few things. First of all, there did exist an ancient country in and around the main peak of the Hornachis Mountains. Secondly, the history of this ancient country can be traced back to at least 1,500 years ago. Thirdly, their architectural style is mainly grand, leaving a variety of murals, from which we can see that they believe that after death, they will protect their relatives in the dark. Finally, in those ruins, symbols symbolizing the night can be seen everywhere, but they are obviously different from the holy emblem of the night. If there is an opportunity, no. Even if there is an opportunity, I won't go there. Klein whispered through his teeth and decided to stay away from death. He packed up those periodicals and magazines and put them back in their original positions. Then, he put on his hat, lifted his cane, and left the DeVille Library, Diviner's Club. Bogda looked at the beautiful lady in charge of reception and said, "I want to read divination." Angelica smiled politely. "Do you have a designated fortune teller? Or, look at our introduction and choose the one that suits you best." Bogda pressed the right side of the abdomen and took a silent breath. "I want to ask Mr. Klein Meridi to help me with my divination. But Mr. Meridi is not here today." Angelica replied without confirmation. Bogda's silence, paced back and forth 2 steps. "When will Mr. Meridi come?" "No one knows. He has his own things. According to my observation, he comes the most on Monday afternoon." Angelica said while thinking, "Okay." Bogda's face darkened and he turned to leave. "Sir, you can also choose other fortune tellers, such as the famous Mr. Heiners Vincent in Tingen." Angelica tried her best to save the business. Bogda paused and hesitated. "No, I only believe Mr. Meridi." "Well, can I wait here for a while? Maybe he will come when he is busy with his own affairs." No problem." Angelica smiled gently. Bogda came to the sofa area, sat down, sometimes rubbed his cane, and sometimes looked out of the window, looking rather anxious as time went by. Bogda's head was in a mess, and he didn't know whether to go or wait. He heard the beautiful lady shout in surprise, "Good afternoon, Mr. Meridi." When Klein saw the familiar Angelica, he wanted to ask casually why you are here again. Don't you need a rest and have no holidays? However, he immediately thought that he was a diviner and should not ask similar questions. Instead, he should say in the tone of a magic stick, "What a wonderful fate. Miss Angelica, we met again. Is this like hitting on someone?" Klein thought sharply and finally only smiled and answered, "Good afternoon, Miss Angelica. A guest wants to see you, for divination." Angelica pointed to Bogda Road, which stood up hurriedly in the sofa area. "I can't believe someone appointed me." Klein took off his half-height silk hat in surprise and pinched his eyebrows twice. "Good afternoon. This gentleman?" His eyes looked, and his words suddenly stopped. In his second sight, the color of the liver of the soothsayer is dull and almost black, which makes the rest of the body out of balance and makes the aura thinner. Klein solemnly said, "Sir, you should see a doctor, not come for divination." Bogda stood there, immediately showed the look of surprise, muttered to himself, "It's amazing. Anna didn't lie to me." He suddenly looked up and earnestly looked at Klein. "Mr. Meridi, I have actually seen a doctor, and there may be an operation next, but I am full of fear of the operation and hope to predict the good or bad result. Surgery in this era is really dangerous. Despite the promotion of Roselle the Great, it still lacks many necessary scientific and technological points." Klein did not refuse and nodded slightly. "The price of my divination is 8 pence. Is there a problem?" 8 pence. Bogda was startled. "You only charge 8 pence? According to Anna's description and Mr. Meridi's performance just now, I am willing to give at least £1. Never heard of small profits but quick turnover?" Klein, embarrassed, thought for a few seconds, corners of the mouth become warped, calmly replied, "It is lucky enough to get inspiration from the gods and get a glimpse of the corner of fate. Therefore, we must remain modest and restrain greed. Only in this way can we continue to receive gifts. You are a true soothsayer." Bogda put his hand on his chest and made a ceremony in a very sincere tone, feeling this kind of praise and belief. Klein's spirituality seems to be relaxed a lot, and the code of conduct just described also makes him seem to touch something. "Miss Angelica, can I use the topaz room?" He turned to look at the beautiful lady next to him. Angelica quietly relieved Bogda and smiled sweetly. "Yes." Into the divination room, Klein let Bogda lock the door and sat behind the table and pinched his forehead. "How about we use tarot cards for divination?" he asked with a smile. "The pendulum method is only suitable for measuring things related to itself, and drawing an astrolabe is too time-consuming. You make the decision." Bogda has no problem, so Klein told him to shuffle, cut cards, and put on an indie card array, taking advantage of the special nature of the soothsayer. Klein did not turn over other cards, but directly opened the one symbolizing the final result. Against the wheel of fate, things will develop in a bad direction. He took a glance and said solemnly. Bogda's face turned pale instantly, and his lips moved a few times. "Is there no hope?" Klein upheld the idea of trying to weigh. "Then I'll change the divination method. Please leave your ring and write your date of birth on this paper, and then wait quietly outside." Infected by his gentle and soothing voice, Bogda calmed down, wrote the message as instructed, and left the ring. Watching each other go out, Klein wrote a line of words on the paper that recorded the information, the result of Bogda Jones's liver surgery. He picked up the ring and paper, leaned back in the chair, and tried dream divination again. In the misty and twisted world, he gradually found himself and saw that the gentleman just fell down in a gloomy face and saw him covered with white cloth and pushed out of the rickety operating room. This time, Klein didn't meet strange things again, and he didn't feel that kind of being watched again. He soon woke up and frowned slightly, thinking about how to tell Bogda the result. Surgery is likely to lead to death. I just learned the ritual magic for treatment today, but I can try it. But it will expose the extraordinary things, and I must apply to the captain first. Well, it may not be able to treat such a serious disease. Klein thought hard and suddenly thought of one thing. Mr. Gracious's lung disease was cured by a pharmacist. He said that the other party's medicine was amazing. What was it called? Yes, Rosen Duckweed, number 18 Vlad Street, East District, Rosen's Folk Herbal Medicine Shop. Klein soon remembered the details because he had memorized it carefully. He tapped his finger on the edge of the table and made a quick decision. With the pendulum method, to quickly determine the quality of the idea, Klein opened the door and looked at Bogda, who stood up hurriedly, handing back the ring while being gentle and smiling. I see your hope. Really? Bogda asked in surprise. Klein didn't answer. One Way said, your hope is in the east side, in Vlad Street, and it has something to do with the word Rosen. If you can't find it, come here to see me after 4 o'clock on Monday afternoon. Okay. Bogda nodded repeatedly, excitedly took out his wallet, and counted out of 5p and 31ps. He completely followed Klein's instructions and didn't corrupt the real soothsayers with tips. Klein took the corners of the mouth, slightly sobbed, warm smile way. I hope you can find hope as soon as possible. When Bogda left, as he did last time, he paid the draw and gave Angelica a tip, pretending that he received 1 soul. East side, Vlad Street. Bogda walked from the street to the end of the street for 3 times, and his liver ached. Finally, he confirmed that there was only one thing related to Rosen in this street, and that was Rosen's Folk Herbal Medicine Shop. Located at number 18, summoning up his courage, he walked in. He smelled all kinds of herbs and saw that the owner of the shop was a man in his 30s and 40s with short black hair and a round face. The boss is wearing a costume similar to a village witch doctor. His robe is dark and embroidered with all kinds of strange symbols. Hello. Do you have any medicine for my illness? Bogda asked with a ha. The boss raised his head. With dark blue eyes swept Bogda one eye, corners of the mouth slightly become warped way. Your liver disease is serious, but the premise of everything is, do you have enough money to pay for the medicine? He can tell. Bogda quickly much a few minutes of confidence hurriedly nods. How much is your medicine worth? 10 pounds, that's fair. The boss conveniently took out a pack of herbs from under the counter. Add water, enough water, and cook it into a potion together. After cooking, add 10 drops of fresh rooster blood, and then drink it immediately. This pack of herbs can be boiled for 3 times, and there should be no problem after 3 times. While speaking, he opened the tan paper and threw several strange herbs into it. Sounds very unbelievable. Bogda swallowed. That's it. The boss stared at him, abrupt smile way. Do you want anything else? How about this bag? When your liver is well, I will make sure that you and your wife are satisfied. He took out another pack of black paper herbs, low voice way. There is mummy powder added in it. Believe me, many nobles are taking this kind of thing, putting it in tea or making soup. Bogda's confidence in the boss was completely shaken, and he even felt sick. I believe Mr. Moridi. He took a deep breath, took out his wallet, and drew 2 bills with the largest denomination from the few gold pounds left. Chapter 83 Sculpture with herbs wrapped in yellow-brown paper. Bogda left Rosen's Folk Herbal Medicine Shop in a dazed waiting for the rail coach. He who ran woke up. You bought this package for 10 pounds. This is close to 1 month's salary if I hadn't trusted Anna and Joyce. I couldn't have brought so much cash to the divination club, is it? Because Mr. Moridi only charges 8 pence for divination that he cooperates with the black-hearted boss of Rosen Herbal Medicine Shop to earn more profits? This is very similar to the classic fraud case in the newspaper. Before and after Bogda's association, he was a little suspicious of Klein. Even Joyce and Anna. The coach stopped, and he looked at the herbs in his hand. In the end, he didn't have the cheek to return, so he had to enter the carriage with a heavy heart. Rosen's Folk Herbal Shop. The boss looked at Bogda's back far away, and suddenly turned back to the back door where herbs were piled up and cried, Sherman, stop buying herbs today. Why? Teacher, why? A handsome boy with unkempt hair came out. The boss smiled to say with smile, This is the 16th customer who came to my house because of my fame. If this continues, I think the night watchman, the penalty taker, and the mechanical heart will all notice me. It's time to consider going to other cities. Does this store need to be transferred? Sherman suddenly nodded and asked with concern. The boss a track. If you want to stay, you can be the owner of the shop. You have enough ability in distinguishing herbs and preparing medicines. Of course, remember to deposit 50% of your monthly profits into my anonymous account in Backlander Bank. But I haven't learned what you are really good at. Sherman is not only tired of living in a city for less than a year, but also reluctant to give up the magic formula that the teacher is good at. The boss sat on the couch, leisurely shaking way. That's not what a learn can learn. A cup of black and green boiling liquid appeared in front of Bogda. The smell like smelly socks and the color that made people want to vomit made him deeply doubt today's every move. Just out of the rooster blood was dripped into the potion. Bogda's father looked at his son anxiously. I think surgery is the best choice. A few cock blood rolled in boiling liquid and disappeared. Bogda took a deep breath and said, if this medicine doesn't work again, I will consider surgery. The Lord will bless you. Bogda's father drew a triangle emblem on his chest. When the boiling liquid cooled, Bogda held the idea that he couldn't waste 10 pounds of money, raised his right hand, closed his eyes and raised his head, and purred all the medicine. The stench of blood echoed in his mouth, making him almost spit out everything he had just drunk. That night, Bogda found that he had a bad stomach and went to the bathroom 6 times. When the crimson moon was about to disappear, he fell asleep in a daze. I don't know how long it took, but he woke up suddenly because he dreamed of the reprimand of the company boss. Fortunately, I took 3 days annual leave and didn't have to rush to the company. Bogda let out a sigh of relief and suddenly found himself in good spirits. This is in stark contrast to the gloom of the past few weeks. Bogda subconsciously reached out and pressed the right side of the abdomen, only to feel that the unbearable area became normal with a little force before, and there was only ordinary tenderness. Don't really have the effect? That pharmacist is obviously bluffing. Bogda turned out of bed in surprise, joy and doubt, and moved his body, only to feel that his long-lost sense of health came back. He pondered for a long time and said to himself, according to the pharmacist's orders, I have to drink the medicine twice. When I finish it, I will go to the hospital and find another physician to have a look. The pharmacist didn't seem to say how many times a day to drink medicine. I still think he is a bit like a liar. In the civilian office of Blackthorn Security Company, Klein pleaded in advance and got an undisturbed environment. Holding a carving knife, he expressed spirituality and earnestly carved mantras and symbols on 2 pieces of silver ornaments. That's Hermes Sven, who prayed to avoid Ernan. It's a symbol of the goddess of the night, 2 mysterious symbols of Ernan, and the Queen of Fear. In addition, Klein also added the spirit number 7 corresponding to the goddess and related magic signs. In addition, both sides of spells and amulets must be carved, and what symbols, mantras, and signs are arranged on each side, what position they occupy, and what special format they have belonged to the advanced category of mysticism, which is full of fallacies among ordinary people at this moment. There are many carved materials on Klein's right-hand side. Through repeated practice, he confirmed that he had mastered them before he dared to make amulets for his brother Benson and his sister Melissa. Spiritual precipitation. Spirituality gushed from the tip of his carving knife, and the number 7 was outlined on the surface of the silver ornament. He has finished carving the mantras and symbols on the other side of the silver ornaments, waiting for this side to finish when the last knife fell. All the spirituality was connected together, and Klein suddenly felt that there were strange, majestic, and terrible forces surging in the room. The surge soon disappeared, and the mantras on both sides of the silver ornaments were completely combined into a hole in Klein's second sight, emitting a quiet and peaceful black. He put down the carving knife and rubbed the silver ornaments made of round and vertical, only to feel warm and cool. All right. He happily pocketed the amulet he had made before and this piece of clothes he had just finished together, and planned to give it to his brother Benson and his sister Melissa when the opportunity came. This amulet made by an extraordinary person has a certain effect, which can make the wearer unconsciously avoid a considerable degree of hardship, but it will not be too exaggerated. Moreover, spirituality will be lost a little. Unless the high-order ritual magic is used and the prayer is completely solidified, the use period of 1 year is the limit, and the high-order ritual magic has terrible requirements for spirituality, which Klein can't bear at present. Then sketch it again with spirituality. Klein nodded thoughtfully and began to clean up the messy table. He hasn't made anything for himself for the time being, because this level of amulets has limited effect on him, so his goal is to make several self-defense spells with special syllables after further mastering the study of spells and cooperating with ritual magic. After finishing the finishing work, Klein just walked out of the civilian office and was ready to hand in the scrap materials when he saw Captain Dunn coming over in a black trench coat. Dunn quiet gray eyes swept away, corners of the mouth become warped way. Klein, the temple has approved, and you are our full member. Really? This is great. Klein gave a half-truth surprise. Dunn smiles and nods. You can pay £3 this week's salary now and £4.5 every week thereafter until the advance is paid off. By the way, did I mention the ceremony of the night watchman? Every official night watchman must complete a task independently. Only in this way can he gain the recognition of his peers. Considering your outstanding performance before, I think you can use the entrusted ordinary task instead. At that time, I will formally introduce you to all night watchmen in Tingen. Klein replied without hesitation. Okay. £3 plus £7 for reimbursement, and adding a formal suit is no problem at all, and there is quite a lot left. Well, I wonder when I can wait for the task. Klein waited until Sunday, until Selena's birthday dinner. After changing his formal clothes and cleaning the half-height silk hat with a brush and handkerchief, Klein looked in the mirror and walked into the first floor with great satisfaction, and this time, Melissa is looking up and down Benson's clothes. Is there a problem? Benson raised his cane, and his sister's eyes looked a little guilty. He looked at himself and felt that there was nothing wrong with him, and he was dressed decently enough. Melissa looked back and said with a serious face, "Benson, this is a very old formal suit. There will be many excellent ladies and ladies attending today's birthday dinner. I think you are disrespecting them by dressing like this." Klein was full of doubts, but after hearing Melissa's emphasis, he suddenly woke up and walked over to say, "Benson and I are about the same size. He can wear my other tuxedo." He has already explained to his brother and sister that he bought a new formal suit, saying that his clothes were damaged by hanging thorns when checking some cultural relics, so the company generously compensated him. Of course, he concealed the promotion and salary increase for fear of scaring Melissa and Benson and planned to wait for half a year before telling them. This explanation made Benson and Melissa very envious, and they felt that Blackthorn Security Company was really an impeccable employer. That's not necessary, is it? Benson still didn't understand the situation and asked, "No, it is very necessary." Klein pushed Benson's shoulder to the stairs. "My tuxedo is hanging on the coat rack." After watching Benson go upstairs with a blank face, Klein turned to Melissa and laughed. "You hope Benson can take advantage of Selena's birthday dinner to start a beautiful relationship with a lady? He has read a lot of newspapers and magazines these days, and he knows that banquets of the nobility and the middle class often have the function of blind date." Melissa seriously nods. "Yes, Benson has missed too much for us." "Sister, how do you live your mother's feelings?" Klein looked at Melissa and suddenly shook his head. Chapter 84. Elizabeth seeing his sister's puzzled eyes, Klein suddenly felt that this was an opportunity. He looked at each other up and down and said with a solemn expression, "Melissa, you don't have enough respect for today's dinner." "What?" Melissa looked puzzled. Klein pointed to her neck and said, "As a lady, you still need a necklace to decorate here." Before his sister could speak, he walked over and took out a silver amulet surrounded by angel feathers from his pocket. "Fortunately, I prepared it for you." Melissa was stunned and immediately blurted out, "How much is it?" "Younger sister, the focus you care about is not quite right." Klein spoke silently and walked over to explain. "Actually, it's not expensive, because it was only a semi-finished product at first. I carved a blessing spell and beautiful patterns on it after imitating the cultural relics I had seen before." "You carved it?" Melissa was really distracted. "How about it? What do you think of my craft?" Klein conveniently handed the amulet to his sister. Melissa tossed and turned to see several eyes. "Bite the lip way. I like the angel feathers around me. If you think the mantras and symbols I carved are ugly, just say so. There is no need to hide them. The amulet is mainly about the effect." Klein's mouth was slightly sobbed, and he was waiting to persuade his sister to accept it. He saw Melissa wearing a silver necklace around her neck with a face of reluctant expression and carefully arranged the position of the amulet. "Perfect." Klein looked at it and praised it grandiose. Melissa glanced at him, looked down at the amulet and said sullenly, "Klein, you weren't like this before, so maybe because of having a good job and a good income, the whole person has become confident." "Damage my clothes." He shook his head and reached out and pulled open the wooden door of Selena's bedroom. "How about it?" Elizabeth stepped back 2 steps and asked nervously. Klein looked at her with fear, took off the half-height silk hat and gently laughed. "I have corrected her mistake in magic mirror divination, and things have been solved." Chapter 87. Told. Really solved? Elizabeth asked in disbelief. Klein leisurely nodded with a smile. "Yes. Things are not difficult. The above sentence is a lie to you," he added silently in his mind. Perhaps Klein has always been very calm, or perhaps it belongs to the only floating board. Elizabeth didn't doubt it again, took a picture of her chest and said with a sigh, "Thank you. You are a trustworthy gentleman. I was scared just now. Selena? Is she all right?" "She may fall asleep for a few minutes, but there is no other problem." "Well, it is normal to be weak for 2 or 3 days." Klein said here, suddenly with a straight face, serious openings. "Who is her occult teacher? Didn't you tell her the basic taboos?" Elizabeth stood up straight at once. Like a student who was criticized by the teacher, she mused. Selena mentioned that her occult teacher was Heiners Vincent. A year ago, she went to the divination club in House Block and met this gentleman. Heiners Vincent. His surface is to guide the magic mirror divination with no problem, and he teaches black divination privately. If I had known it, I would have informed the captain earlier and checked his gas meter earlier. Klein was slightly annoyed and sank a voice and asked, "Selena's magic mirror divination was also taught by him?" For Klein, what scares him the most is that it almost affects his sister Melissa. Elizabeth carefully nods. "Yes, but Selena's previous attempts at magic mirror divination failed several times." "Well, She told me today that she peeked at her teacher's secret mantras, which is definitely no problem. Death expert. Klein has a headache and pinched his temples. Do you remember the mantra she recited? Although Heiners Vincent didn't take the initiative to teach Selena dangerous knowledge, it can be clearly seen that he is trying to provoke unknown and secret existence, and it is only a matter of time before something happens, so it must be dealt with as soon as possible to avoid the situation deteriorating to affect others. Remember part of it. Elizabeth recalled. She used her mission in the occult. You know, I just came into contact with it for a while, but I only remember the words wandering, spirit, creator, and family. Creator? The real creator? Many underground occult enthusiasts really believe in this ancient existence respected by many secret organizations. Yes, it appeared more than 1,000 years ago in the early 5th period. Klein thoughtful nods. When Selena wakes up, you remember to ask the complete mantra and tell me when you get a chance. Okay. Elizabeth replied readily, but soon she wondered and said, Mr. Moridi, why don't you just ask her? I don't want Melissa to know that I like mysticism. Can you keep it a secret for me? Klein didn't answer the rhetorical question. Elizabeth bit the lower lip, eyes shining way. No problem. Melissa really prefers machinery to mystery and rationality to intuition. Klein will hold a hat hand to the left chest, a gentleman bow way. Thank you for your understanding, and Selena, as you know, is not a good person to keep secrets. More accurately, she likes to share secrets with others. Elizabeth agrees. Klein put on his hat and wanted to think. When Selena wakes up, you remember to tell her that she suddenly fainted and broke the mirror. I think her memory must have stayed in the beginning of magic mirror divination for a long time. See, Elizabeth nodded, he again with a straight face way. Remember, whether it's divination or trying other occult knowledge, don't pray to the existence except the 7 gods. When you see a mantra that does not belong to this type, burn it immediately and stay away from the provider. If I hadn't discovered it in time today and waited for another 10 minutes, Selena would have become a monster and an evil spirit, and no one would have survived, including me. Think of the cold Selena in the mirror. Elizabeth didn't doubt Klein's rhetoric, dying and sighed. I know, I remember, and I will also supervise Selena. Well, you go in and take care of Selena. Klein raised Yang's silver-inlaid black cane and stepped towards the stairs. During the walk, his eyes deepened and his eyes closed. He took out a penny copper coin in his right hand and slammed it into the air. Selena has no problem. Selena has no problem. Klein quickly repeated this statement, stretched out his hand and caught the rolling copper coin, and saw that it was George III's head facing up. This is not a simplification of the pendulum method, but a simplification of dream divination. At that moment, Klein forced himself to sleep with meditation, and God swam the spiritual world, and the front and back of the coin were explicit symbols. The head picture is correct, but the number is wrong. Good, that's all right. Klein makes brass coins spin happily at his fingertips. Just belong to the soothsayer to complete the simplification. Elizabeth stared at Klein's back, saw dancing pennies and caught them casually. It was not until Klein disappeared on the stairs that she turned and entered the bedroom and saw Selena sleeping on the ground, with glass fragments on her side. She held her breath, stood on tiptoe, looked at the fragments of glasses, and confirmed that there was no cold Selena inside and reflected the ceiling scene. Oh, Elizabeth was completely relieved and relieved, however, after several efforts. She failed to help Selena to the bed, but woke up the other side. Elizabeth, what's wrong with me? Are you drunk? Selena asked slightly feebly. Her bright eyes dimmed a lot. Full of confusion, Elizabeth thought for a few seconds and replied with great seriousness. No, Selena, there's something wrong with you. Your magic mirror divination has caused a bad existence. Really? Selena, assisted by Elizabeth, sat weakly on the edge of the bed and rubbed her temples. I only remember that I just started magic mirror divination. Elizabeth half-truths way. You were like a different person just now. You, in the mirror, are even a little different from the real you. I was scared, took you into the bedroom on an excuse to surprise you, grabbed your mirror, broke it on the carpet, and then you fainted. Blessed by the goddess, you are normal now. I don't remember. Selena murmured palely. The more she thinks back, the more blank her head is, and the more she feels scared unconsciously. She looked up at the desk and found that the arrangement there was obviously different from before. What happened? Selena thought hard, only vaguely remembering a figure in a black tuxedo and a half-height silk hat, not strong, not tall, but quite tall and straight. Selena. Elizabeth said solemnly. The last time I went to the underground trading market to buy amulets, I met an expert in mysticism. He told me not to pray to the existence other than the 7 gods at any time, otherwise it would inevitably lead to disaster. Promise me not to try again. I didn't even know if I could save you just now. Selena is also frightened, rushed to nod away. No, I won't try again. Well, what do you mean by magic mirror divination mantra? If I have the chance to meet that occult expert again, I will help you ask. Elizabeth asked casually. Selina rubbed her temples and wanted to think. The lingering spirit, the family of the true creator, the eyes staring at fate. When Klein went down the stairs, he carefully arranged the folds of his clothes and patted the dust off them. Then, he took off his half-height silk hat and walked slowly back to the long dining table with a silver-inlaid black cane. Where have you been? It's almost 10 minutes. Selina's brother Chris just folded and asked. Klein smiled and said, the bathroom. Then I went to the second floor to meet some ladies and ladies. I appreciate your directness. Chris haha praise. He has red hair, a short stature, a pair of gold-rimmed glasses on his face, and a very capable temperament. He is an excellent lawyer. If you knew that I went to the second floor and knocked out your sister, you wouldn't say that. Klein said modestly. Just discussing some academic issues. The occult. He put his hat away, returned to his seat, waited until the next hand started, and got 2 cards that tilting the corner of the edge. He saw a K of spades and an of diamonds. Luck is getting better. Is this the reward for doing good deeds? Klein took out the copper coins and prepared to bet. Since Heiners didn't take the initiative to reveal the mantra to Selina, there is no need to be too eager to inform the captain. He thought that after that, he kept a tight hand. Only when he had a good hand would he bet, and he didn't catch an uncertain bluff. Overall, he didn't win or lose much. By the end of 10:30, he won 6 pence, I won 2 souls and 8 pence. Benson played with the notes and pennies in his hand. I didn't expect you to be a poker expert. Klein smiled and praised it. No, I don't play cards very much, but I know that this is the same as negotiation. You must hide your cards, see through others' cards, and then scare him or seduce him in various ways. Benson didn't say that finish when he saw Melissa and others coming down from the second floor. It's time to go home. Klein glanced at his sister and her friends and rubbed his temples. The throbbing pain in his head still exists. Then, Klein went to the bathroom once and learned the complete mantra from Elizabeth by passing by back to the front of my brother and sister. He smiled and said, by the way, it suddenly occurred to me that I need to go back to the company. Let's go to Zotrin Street first, shall we?
Soon.
Chapter 88 report. What is it? Benson casually asked one, and Melissa looked at her brother seriously because she thought Klein's performance tonight was just as weird, only a little better than Elizabeth and Selina later. Klein had thought about the rhetoric, haha laughs. There is a mistake in a description of a document, and I have told my colleagues to submit it as soon as they arrive at the company tomorrow morning. So either I will drop by now to revise it, or I will get up at least half an hour tomorrow. There is no doubt that I choose the former. I have always felt that you are not paying enough attention to playing cards. It turned out that you were thinking about work. Benson suddenly realized and immediately smiled. No, I apologize. I should say that playing cards helps to think. Okay, we will wait for you. Melissa looked back at the line of sight, raised my hand to sort out the flounces of the leg sleeves of lamb. Because the operating hours of the rail and trackless buses were long, the 3 brothers and sisters left and went out, so they had to hire a taxi nearby for 45 minutes in Seoul. I heard that every taxi driver will raise the price at random. After Benson paid out most of the money he won, he complained in a low voice. Klein smiled and said, I think it's acceptable. It's almost 11 o'clock now. I'm just kidding. My idea now is that we can actually jointly hire and go to many places with other guests in 45 minutes. Benson looked out the window at the people who hired carriages one after another that I know, carpooling. Klein rubbed the silver pattern on the top of his cane. We have no problem, but other guests have. Benson, haven't you found it? They all pay great attention to their own image and are very concerned about decent. I think this may be the commonality of the middle class. Benson nodded seriously. The Woods are more luxurious than I expected. However, the salary of Old Woods is only £4 a week. Well, decency may be the biggest difference between some middle classes and curly baboons. The curly-haired baboon provoked you. Klein almost couldn't hold back his smile. Melissa didn't join their discussion. She sat in her seat and looked at Klein from time to time, which made him feel a little scared. The light 2-wheeled carriage sped along the quiet and gloomy streets, and it took only 12 minutes to reach Zotland Street. You wait for me here for 5 minutes, no more than 5 minutes, and I will come back. Klein emphasized again, put on his hat, took his cane and got out of the carriage. Because it is to calculate the time, not the distance. The coachman has no opinion on waiting up the stairs. Klein came to the outside of Blackthorn Security Company and knocked on the door. Less than 10 seconds later, the door opened backwards and Leonard Mitchell appeared in front of him in a vest and shirt. You don't have to be on duty tonight. Leonard stressed in a slightly surprised way. Klein only needs to work at Cheney's Gate 1 day a week, and he can still maintain his normal work and rest the rest of the time. As for the emergencies at night, the sleepless who like the night will take care of them. But sleeping only 2 or 3 hours a day will cause hair loss and memory decline. Whenever I think about these, Klein can't help but ridicule Captain Dunsmith. I have something to report. He said simply, have a task. Leonard gave up the position of the door and asked casually. As soon as Klein entered the reception hall, he saw Dunn coming out in a black trench coat, and his gray eyes were as deep as ever. Captain, I met an extraordinary event. The specific situation. Dunn asked directly. Klein will be before things, and their own handling exactly said it again. So, I think it is necessary to investigate Heiners Vincent. At that time, he thought that since the evil thing invited by magic mirror divination had not caused a tragedy and had not given himself a hint of extreme danger, it indicated that the other party might still need time and was unwilling to wake up early or control Selina. Therefore, as long as its purpose was not directly exposed, the evil thing would definitely choose to wait and see. In this case, it was not too difficult for Elizabeth to cheat Selina to the bedroom door. You handled it very well and seized the opportunity when the evil spirit has not completely arrived and has not fully possessed it. Dunn nodded gently. We'll take care of the next investigation. You can go back to rest. Klein relieved, haha laughs. I thought, Captain, you would take this as my joining task and let me do it alone. Judging from the mantras provided by Elizabeth, Heiners Vincent is dangerous to some extent. This is because you have the task of joining the team. Loose and casual Leonard beside chuckle. What? Klein got a fright. Dunn corners of the mouth become warped, voice alcohol, and explained. At 7 o'clock in the evening, we received a case transferred from the police station and initially confirmed that there was no danger or urgency, so we plan to let you finish it alone tomorrow. Well, don't ask what the case is. Have a good sleep tonight. Your rest day will be moved to Tuesday or Wednesday. Captain, if you do this, I can't sleep. Besides, Monday afternoon is the date of tarot party. Is it necessary to wind up justice and upside down in advance to postpone news? Klein shook his head with a wry smile and left. Out of the stairs, he suddenly noticed, looked up at the carriage he hired, and saw Melissa looking at herself quietly through the window. Eye contact. Melissa turned her head and sat upright. Klein's mouth moved slightly, pretending that nothing had happened and stepping into the carriage. Under the crimson moon and pure night sky, the two-wheeled carriage drove briskly, crossing one street after another. When he got home, Klein asked Benson to take a shower first, and he came to Melissa's bedroom door and raised his hand and knocked twice. Melissa, who was about to go to another bathroom, creaked the door and looked at her brother doubtfully. Melissa, is there anything you want to ask? I know you have. Klein directly said, don't always spy. Melissa's lips moved a few times, slightly frowning way. Klein, what have you done to Elizabeth? I feel that she is very wrong. Besides, Selina became very strange later. Klein had prepared asks, do you know that Elizabeth and Selina are occult lovers? I know, but I don't like it. I don't think there is anything in this world that is incomprehensible. Melissa paused and replied seriously, all we don't understand is because we don't have enough knowledge. Well, I think so, too. Klein guiltily echoed one. Did I used to think so, until my death was successful. He gently coughed to sound, continued. Mysticism includes Hermite, which is a special word for ancient sacrifices and prayers. Elizabeth knows that I am good at this. Well, after all, this is the field of historians, so she asked me for some corresponding words and specific meanings. Melissa nodded slightly and accepted her brother's explanation because it was in line with her understanding of both sides. As for why Elizabeth and Selina became eccentric later, I don't know the specific reason. Klein cleared himself first and then said, but I can guess. Can you guess? Melissa blurted out in surprised. Klein's hand pestle mouth way. I guess from what Elizabeth asked me. The Hermitians she mentioned were related to divination and some evil sacrificial objects. Well, did Selina recite Hermitians when she was divining with a magic mirror? He took the initiative to mention this matter in order to alert his sister to similar things in the future. It would be better if he could stay away from Selina and Elizabeth, yes? Melissa replied hesitantly, I think I understand the eccentricity of Elizabeth and Selina. At this time, Klein deliberately asks, because Selina's magic mirror divination involves evil and illegal beliefs, Elizabeth found an opportunity to blame each other and correct each other's mistakes after finding out the specific meaning of Hermite from me? I think so. Melissa has no doubt about this conclusion, because she deduced it herself. See their own induction work. Klein relieved way. You should also warn Selina more in the future and let her return to the right path of faith. When he said this, he nodded 4 times in his chest. Well, I will. Melissa answered firmly. Also, don't tell Elizabeth and Selina what we speculated and what I said. I promised Elizabeth the first wouldn't tell you. Klein finally stressed. Melissa nodded lightly. At 8 o'clock a.m. on Monday, Blackthorn Security Company, Klein took off his hat, greeted Luo Shan and Brett, and after greeting the weather, he entered the office of Captain Dunn Smith. He pushed open the door and looked up, suddenly startled, because Dunn's face was quite pale and his gray eyes were slightly turbid, and he lost his usual depth. What is the matter? Heiners Vincent? Klein asked with surprise and concern. Dunn rubbed his forehead, sipped his coffee, and said with a wry smile, Heiners Vincent is dead. Who killed him in advance? Klein took a cane and sat opposite Dunn. Dunn didn't answer directly, sigh away. Leonard and I went to see Heiners Vincent last night because he didn't show any unusual signs and there was nothing strange at home, so I decided to go into his dream to look for clues first. In his dreams, Dunn repeated twice, eyes unconsciously reveal fear, and said, In his dream, I saw a cross, a huge cross, a cross that filled the sky. On this cross, a naked man was nailed with black nails. His arms were open, his feet were on the floor, his head hung like a pendant, and his body was covered with blood stains. As soon as I saw this picture, I fainted and left Heiners Vincent's dream. When I woke up, Leonard told me that Heiners died in his sleep. A huge cross, a man hanging upside down and covered in blood. This is a bit like the real creator that several secret organizations believe in, but it is very different. Klein speculated doubtfully. Secret organizations that believe in the true creator are mainly a few that have only appeared in the last 200 or 300 years, such as the Aurora Society, such as the Iron Cross, but for more than 1,000 years before, there was a similar image of not fade away. Dunn rubbed his forehead again. We will follow up later. You should finish your joining task first. Chapter 89 Simple Tasks. Klein ordered his head to say, Okay, but I don't know what my task is yet. A non-dangerous task, at least now, can't see the signs of danger. Dunn emphasized the key points first and then said, This case was transferred from the police station in Jinwatong district. Sir Dwell, a famous philanthropist, was strangely harassed for a month in a row, but neither his bodyguard, hired security guards, nor the police could find the culprit. Inspector Toller, who was in charge of this matter, highly suspected that it was related to supernatural power, so he submitted it to us. I saw Sir Deville in the library before and found that he was in a bad mood and weak. It turned out that he was harassed. Klein frowned slightly and said, What kind of harassment is it? At present, this incident has not caused substantial harm, and it is really not dangerous. Sir Deville hears crying and moaning every night, no matter where he sleeps, whether he is in Tianjin or not, which makes his sleep quality very poor. Dunn flipped through the information at hand. He went to see a psychiatrist and asked the housekeeper and servants around him to confirm that it was not an illusion, so he suspected that someone was harassing him. Closed files, Dunn looked up at Klein. You go to the lounge and put on your trainee inspector's costume and meet Inspector Toller in the lobby of the shooting club. He will tell you more details. Trainee inspector clothing? Klein subconsciously asked one. Dunn rubbed his forehead and smiled and said, Half of our salary is paid by the police department, and the name of the trainee inspector does not only exist in the file. When you first met Leonard and me, we were also wearing uniforms. This is the welfare that every official player has. Well, the kind of welfare that Roselle the Great said. It's a pity that you can't wear it at ordinary times. Otherwise you can have a change of clothes. Klein took his cane, saluted, and left the captain's office. He came to the lounge diagonally across the street, where he saw a white uniform with black background, including boots. The soft hat was inlaid with a coat of arms of double swords crossed and surrounded by crowns, and the shoulder had a badge with a silver star shining at the bottom of black and white. This is the trainee inspector? Klein glanced at it and found a string of inconspicuous numbers under the silver star of the epaulets. 06-254. At present, he has a preliminary understanding of the police hierarchy in the Kingdom of Ruan, and understands that the police minister and chief police secretary are at the top, followed by the directors, deputy directors, and assistant directors of various police departments. The superintendents and inspectors are at the middle, and the police chiefs and police officers are at the bottom. Closed the door. Klein took off his formal suit, hat, and put on the uniform. Hang up the original clothes. He pushed the door out, entered the civilian office, and took a photo of the full-length mirror that Luo Shan had won. The young man in the mirror is full of black hair and gentle brown eyes, and his uniform makes him a little more heroic than usual. Not bad. Klein, happily narcissistic, left the cane in the office, turned and walked out of the Blackthorn Security Company. In his pocket, there are as many police officer cards as all kinds of weapons use cards. In the lobby of the shooting club, Klein saw Inspector Toller because he was the only one wearing a police uniform here. Of course, now I have to be added. Klein added silently. Inspector Toller has 2 silver stars on his epaulets, his clothes are propped up by his stomach, and he has a thick brown beard on his face. He is tall but not strong, or he has been strong. Maridi. Klein Maridi? Toller looked up and down a few smiled to meet up. Hello, Inspector Toller, I don't think you have the wrong person. Klein replied humorously, and according to the impression, he raised his right hand, folded his 5 fingers, and saluted. Toller haha laughs. I can see that you are an easygoing young man, so I'm relieved. Shall we go to Sir Deville's house now? Although his police rank is higher than Klein's, his tone is obviously questioning. No problem. Klein thought for a moment. You can tell me the details in the carriage. Okay. Toller touched the thick brown beard and led Klein out of the shooting club and into a carriage parked opposite. The carriage is painted with a coat of arms of double swords crossing and surrounding the crown, which is controlled by a special driver. Sir de Ville is a disciple of the goddess, so we have transferred the case to you. Toller, just sit down. Can't wait to hand over to Treatone. I know that Jazz is a frequent visitor to newspaper content and magazine covers. Klein smiled gently. Toller picked up the envelope next to it, untied it, pulled out the information, and turned the edge and said, "Whether you know it or not, I need to give you a detailed introduction. Sir de Ville is the richest man in Tingen. His career started from the lead factory and porcelain factory, and now it has spread to steel, coal, shipping, banks, and securities. He was praised by the king of philanthropists and established the de Ville Charity Fund, the de Ville Trust Company, and the de Ville Library. He was awarded the title of Lord 5 years ago. If he is willing to run for mayor, I don't think anyone in Tingen will be his opponent. However, his goal is in Backlander. He wants to be a member of the upper house of the kingdom. We once suspected that his harassment was related to this matter, but we couldn't find any clues." Klein gently and said, "I don't rule out this possibility, but I'm not sure about anything now." Toller, without too much entanglement this problem, continued. Since the 6th of last month, when Sir de Ville went to sleep every night, he heard a painful groan that made his scalp numb, just like a dying patient struggling. He checked the surrounding rooms and found nothing unusual. The housekeeper and servants also confirmed that there were similar sounds, but the noise they heard was very slight. At first, Sir de Ville thought that things would pass quickly and didn't care too much, but the groans of pain became more and more frequent, even during the day, and there were more heart-wrenching cries. This Sir Jean de Ville suffered from insomnia again and had to leave Tingen and go to the villa in the country, but it didn't work. He was still haunted by moaning and crying. Similarly, even if he went to Backlander, things didn't calm down, but it was relatively less serious. He asked security personnel to check the surrounding area and found no clues. Our preliminary investigation also lacked gains. Sir Jean de Ville's spirit, which has been tortured for more than a month, is close to collapse. He has visited a psychiatrist again and again, but he still can't get rid of his troubles. He told us that if the problem can't be solved within this week, he will move out of Tingen and go to Backlander, where he believes there must be someone who can help him. After hearing Toller's description, Klein quickly analyzed various possibilities. Which extraordinary person has been offended and cursed? No, if it's a curse, the housekeeper and the servant can't hear the sound the same. There is an extraordinary person who doesn't know what purpose lurks among servants and bodyguards. But the problem is, this more than a month, still no one asked Sir de Ville. Perhaps Sir de Ville accidentally got the dirty thing of ghosts and evil spirits. Don't rule out this reason. Klein's thoughts are colorful, and the carriage enters the Golden Indus district and stops at the door of Sir de Ville. There are flourishing gardens surrounded by iron railings, hollowed-out iron gates with 2 statues, springs that constantly gush and bathe marble statues, 2-story houses that occupy an active area on the ground, and roads that are enough for 3 carriages to run in parallel. Jazz home has only 2 floors. The newspaper said that Backlander was trying to build an apartment building with up to 10 floors. Klein got off the carriage and saw a police officer with 3 V's on his epaulets meet him quickly. He gave Klein a look and raised my hand to salute. "Good morning, sir." "Good morning." Klein smiled and nodded. Toller beside laughed. "This is Sheriff Gator. You can tell him anything." "This is Mr. Moridi, a trainee inspector, an expert in history and psychology at the county police department." Toller introduced another sentence to Gator. "I can't afford it." Klein was ashamed. "Greetings, Gate," pointing to the 2nd floor behind the Fountain House Way. "Sir de Ville is waiting for us." "Okay." Klein reached out and touched the revolver around his waist. This is his greatest reliance against the enemy at present. Because he changed his police uniform, he can put the gun bag on his waist fair and square, which is easy to pull out while speaking. A line of 3 people along the broad road, bypassing the fountain, came to the front door. At this time, a servant had opened the door and waited. Klein pretended to tidy his hat before entering the house, pinched his eyebrows twice, and opened the second sight. In the bright living room, Sir de Ville with a square face is rubbing his forehead, and his spirit is quite poor. His dark gold hair and blue eyes are dry or dim, and the whole person seems to be 5 years old. "Good morning, sir." Crane, Toller, and Gate salute at the same time. Sir de Ville got up and forced a smile to respond. "Good morning, 3 police officers. I hope you can solve my troubles." At this time, Klein narrowed his eyes and frowned slightly, apart from his poor spirit. He didn't find anything wrong with Sir de Ville. This is very strange. He wanted to think. "Sir, in which room did you first hear moaning?" "My bedroom." Sir de Ville shook his head. "Can we have a look?" Klein asked, "Haven't you checked several times?" The middle-aged housekeeper next to him frowned and asked, Obviously, he didn't recognize Klein as a companion of a good-hearted person who collects money without knowing it. Klein gentle laugh. That's my colleague, not me. Sir, this is an expert sent by the police department. Toller seized the opportunity to introduce one. DeVille took a deep look at the young expert and said, Okay, Karen, you take them to my bedroom. Sir, I hope you will come with us. Klein said seriously. DeVille hesitated for a few seconds. If this can help solve the problem. As he spoke, he picked up his cane and walked vainly to the stairs, surrounded by the housekeeper Karen and several bodyguards, always ready to help. Klein looked around and followed silently, but calmly. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. They came to the second floor and entered the master bedroom. Klein's hair stood on end before he could examine the environment. This is the feedback from his inspiration. See, in Chapter 90, Sir DeVille's bedroom is bigger than the living room and dining room of Klein's family. It consists of a bed part, a living part, a dressing part, a toilet part, and a bookshelf desk part. It is exquisitely decorated and luxurious in details. But in Klein's feeling, the lighting here is dark and the temperature is at least half lower than that outside. At the same time, his ears seemed to hear one cry after another, as well as a dying moan. Klein was in a trance, only to see that everything was back to normal. The bright sunshine penetrated the window and filled the whole bedroom. The temperature is neither high nor low. The policemen, bodyguards, and butlers around were silent and didn't speak. He looked sideways at the classical and gorgeous bed and saw that there seemed to be a pair of blurred eyes hovering in the shadows, like a moth who is not afraid of death next to a gas lamp. He took a few steps, near there, but Klein's second sight lost the picture he had just seen, and not a standard ghost, let alone an evil spirit. What is it? Klein frowned, recalling the occult knowledge he had mastered during this time. In his view, I'm afraid it won't be a bit difficult to hand over today's tasks to corpse collectors, grave diggers, and psychics, but this is obviously not his best field. Enduring the impulse of divination investigation direction, Klein looked around slowly, looking for other traces to confirm several guesses in his heart. This, Inspector. Sir DeVille hesitated. Did you find anything? If it was so easy to find out, I don't think my colleagues would wait until now. Klein said the rhetoric, subconsciously saw a philanthropist one-eyed. Just as he was about to look back, he suddenly found a simple figure reflected in the mirror behind Sir DeVille. No, it's a simple and twisted figure that overlaps again and again. This figure passed, and Klein seemed to hear a faint cry again shout. He vomited foul air to ease the fear that he almost pulled out his gun just now, raised the inspiration. Open the second sight. Sooner or later we'll be scared crazy. Klein used his own way to relieve his tension, and then turned his attention back to Sir DeVille. This time, he saw something different. Sir DeVille, who is in this bedroom, is surrounded by shallow and twisted shadows from time to time, which makes the light slightly dim in that area, and every time it flashes, it is bound to be accompanied by illusory cries and groans that are hard for normal people to hear. And normal people are hard to hear under normal conditions? Because of the daytime? Klein nodded thoughtfully. He has a preliminary judgment on this case. What haunts Sir DeVille is a lot of resentment, which is the spiritual residue caused by the most difficult emotion before human death. If this resentment and residue are accumulated for a period of time and several times stronger, it will become a terrible evil spirit. However, Sir DeVille is a famous philanthropist. Even Benson is so picky, he has great respect for him. Why are there so many death grievances? Duplicity? The means of a malicious, extraordinary person? Klein doubtfully guessed the possibility. He wanted to think, looked at DeVille and said, Dear sir, I have a few questions. Go ahead. DeVille sat down wearily and weakly. Klein organized language way. When you leave here and go to a new place such as the countryside, such as Backlander, did you get a short peace at least in the middle of the night, and then the situation slowly recovered and became more and more serious? Until you sleep during the day, you will hear moaning and crying? DeVille's half-narrowed eyes opened, and the blue eyes were much more glorious. Yes, have you found the root of the matter? Only then did he find that he had forgotten to tell the police such an important clue because of long-term insomnia and poor mental condition. See Klein's question get a positive answer. Inspector Toller secretly relieved. Understand that the night watchman found a clue. The Sheriff Gator was surprised and curious, and he couldn't help but look at Klein, a psychologist, in line with the characteristics of resentment gradually winding and gathering a little bit. A Klein who got feedback, basically